They told me the night shift would be quiet. They lied. I accepted the graveyard shift at the old hospital because the pay was good. And because I liked being alone. The hospital had been abandoned for years. The locals said it was haunted. I laughed at that. I shouldn't have. The night I arrived, fog clung to the ground like a living thing. The building loomed through the mist, windows dark and empty. Its walls groaned with age. The doors were unlocked, swinging slightly in the wind. The air smelled of rust, mildew, and something else. Something coppery. My stomach turned. Inside, the reception area was frozen in time. Broken chairs littered the floor. Dust covered the counters thick as frost. I found the security office easily. A small room with a desk, a flickering lamp, and a single chair. On the desk, a laminated sheet in bold letters, "Night Shift Rules, read before you begin." I skimmed the rules. Rule 1, do not respond to anyone knocking after midnight. Rule 2, if you hear someone whisper your name, stay still and pretend to be asleep. Rule 3, do not enter the East Wing after 2:17 a.m. Rule 4, keep all doors locked unless instructed otherwise in writing. Rule 5, do not turn off any lights. Darkness carries more than shadows. Rule 6, if the elevator moves on its own, do not ride it. Rule 7, do not look at your reflection in any mirror after 3:03 a.m. Rule 8, if the intercom crackles with static, do not speak. Rule 9, do not leave the security office for more than 10 minutes at a time. Rule 10, when the clock chimes 4, everything you see may not be real. I laughed quietly. Old superstition. Just stories people tell themselves to make the night feel longer. But as soon as the clock struck 12, a soft knock echoed through the office door. Rule 1. My pulse jumped. The knock was slow, deliberate. Then silence. A whisper followed. My name. Rule 2. I pressed myself against the chair, pretending to be asleep. The whisper circled the room, fading in and out. Morning came. I told myself it was my imagination. The second night was colder. The hospital smelled worse. Dust and mildew mixed with a metallic tang that made my stomach twist. The monitors flickered. Hallways looked longer. Rooms I had walked past before appeared in angles I didn't remember. I told myself I was tired. At 1:50 a.m., footsteps echoed outside the office. Rule 9. I stayed put. Cameras showed shadows moving where nothing should have been. At 2:15 a.m., a groan came from the East Wing. I knew I shouldn't go. The clock read 2:16 a.m. Rule 3. But something pulled me. Curiosity. Fear. Something darker. I grabbed my flashlight. I stepped into the East Wing. The door slammed behind me. The beam of my flashlight cut through darkness so thick it felt like liquid. The walls peeled, revealing layers of decay. The floorboards groaned under my weight. A figure lurked in the corner. Limbs bent in impossible ways. It whispered my name repeatedly. I stumbled backward. Rule 5. The lights went out. Darkness swallowed me whole. The elevator groaned in the distance. Doors opened by themselves. Rule 6. I turned away. Something cold touched my shoulder. Rule 7 kept me from looking at the mirrors lining the hallway. The intercom hissed static. Rule 8. I did not speak. Time warped. The clock approached 4. Rule 10. Corridors twisted around themselves. Monitors showed rooms I had never seen. Doors opened into walls. Shadows thickened. I ran blindly. Hours, or maybe minutes, passed. By dawn, I found myself back at the security desk. The rule sheet was wet and smeared. Some lines were rewritten in handwriting that wasn't mine. I left without finishing my shift. I never returned. But sometimes, at night, I hear the soft knocking and whispers of my name. I know now the rules never left the building. They follow you. And I can't help but wonder what happens the next time someone breaks one. The next night, I returned despite my better judgment. I told myself I needed to understand what had happened. The fog outside was thicker this time. It clung to the ground and the walls like crawling fingers. The hospital loomed like a predator waiting for me. I stepped inside. The air was colder. Every breath burned my lungs. The smell of decay was stronger, sharper, almost metallic. The reception area looked slightly different. Dust had shifted. Chairs were in new positions. It was subtle, but it made my skin crawl. I sat at the security desk. The rule sheet was back in the exact spot it had always been. I checked the cameras. Nothing moved. Or so it seemed. At 12:03 a.m., the first knock came. Slow, deliberate, like a heartbeat against the door. Rule 1. I froze. The knocking grew louder. Then it stopped. A whisper floated through the office. My name. Rule 2. I pressed my palms over my ears, tried to block it out. The whisper circled me, almost playful, almost hungry. I told myself to stay still. To obey. To survive. At 12:17 a.m., I noticed a light flickering at the end of the east wing. The door was slightly ajar. Rule 3 screamed in my mind. I knew I shouldn't go. I shouldn't. But curiosity, that dangerous curiosity, tugged at me. I stepped toward the east wing. The floor groaned beneath me. The beam of my flashlight wavered. Shadows danced along the walls. A figure moved at the far end, disappearing each time I tried to focus on it. I felt a sudden chill wrap around my neck. Rule 5. I should have turned on more lights. I didn't. The darkness deepened. I heard soft breathing behind me. I spun around. Nothing. At 1:02 a.m., the intercom crackled. Rule 8. I froze. Static hissed like claws on metal. A voice whispered, "You shouldn't be here." I didn't answer. I couldn't. Speaking felt like surrendering. At 1:17 a.m., I heard the elevator move on its own. Rule 6. Its cables groaned. The doors opened and closed slowly. Something inside it seemed to watch me. I turned away. I tried to calm myself. I told myself it was just the wind. Just old building noises. But I could feel eyes on me. I remembered the mirrors. Rule 7. I avoided them. Every reflective surface seemed to pulse with movement. Shadows bent into shapes that should not exist. A hand reached out from one reflection. I ran before I could look closer. At 2:53 a.m., I felt a cold hand on my shoulder. I spun around. No one was there. The air felt thicker, heavier. Like it was pressing against my chest. Rule 9. I left the office for just a moment to check the hallway. I knew I was tempting fate. But I had to know. The east wing stretched before me. Each step echoed. Each breath fogged the air in front of me. I saw something move in the corner of my eye. A figure crouched, too tall, too thin, limbs bending at wrong angles. It whispered my name. Rule 2. I froze. I could feel its gaze. Hunger? Curiosity? Malice? I didn't know. At 3:03 a.m., I caught a glimpse of my reflection. Rule 7. My eyes locked with my own, but something was off. My reflection smiled. I hadn't. It leaned closer. I turned away. The walls began to breathe. They expanded and contracted like lungs. A low moaning filled the hallways. I ran back toward the security office. The building seemed endless now. Doors led into walls. Hallways looped impossibly. Shadows multiplied. Rule 10 approached. The clock struck 4. Everything around me shifted. Reality fractured. Figures lurked just beyond vision. The monitors displayed rooms that didn't exist. I was screaming, but no sound came out. I tripped, fell to my knees, and saw something written on the wall. In blood? Ink? Something wet and red. Break the rules and you belong to US. I scrambled back, heart hammering. By dawn, I found myself back in the security office. The rule sheet was clean. Everything appeared normal. But I felt it behind me. Watching. Waiting. I knew now, breaking a rule even slightly brings attention. Even hesitation has consequences. Even fear is dangerous. And I had tested the boundaries tonight. Night 3 began heavier than the last. The fog outside was almost solid. It clung to my clothes, my hair, my skin. The hospital loomed like a beast breathing cold air. I felt it watching me. I couldn't shake the feeling. The office was quieter this time. Too quiet. I checked the monitors. Hallways stretched and bent in ways I didn't remember. Rooms appeared and disappeared. Shadows moved independently of any light source. At 12:01 a.m., a knock came. Rule 1. Slow. Deliberate. The whisper followed, my name. Rule 2. I pressed myself against the chair, heart hammering. But tonight, curiosity gnawed at me stronger than fear. I glanced at the east wing door. Rule 3. The door was cracked open. A faint light pulsed from inside. Something beckoned. I knew I shouldn't go. I knew it. But I stepped inside. The darkness was thick, heavier than air. My flashlight barely penetrated it. The walls oozed shadows. I heard a soft giggle behind me. I spun. Nothing. The floorboards creaked under my feet. Every step echoed like a drumbeat. Then I saw it. A figure crouched at the end of the hall. Too thin. Too long. Its head tilted at an impossible angle. Eyes glowed like molten silver. It whispered my name again. Closer this time. Rule 5. The lights flickered. I had been too slow. The darkness around me seemed to lean in. I felt cold fingers brush my shoulder. I stumbled, almost falling. Rule 7. I avoided the mirrors lining the hallway. But one caught my eye. A brief reflection. Not mine. The figure's face stared back at me. A smile that shouldn't exist. I looked away quickly. The intercom hissed to life. Rule 8. Static cracked like thunder. A voice whispered, "You cannot leave." I stayed silent. The elevator groaned on its own. Rule 6. I didn't look at it. I didn't move toward it. But the sound drew me. I stepped into the east wing again. I know now I had broken a major rule. Rule 3, fully. I hadn't listened. And it would punish me. The walls began to twist. Doors opened into nothing. Hallways looped back on themselves. Shadows lengthened, stretching across floors and ceilings. The air smelled of iron and decay. Every breath burned my lungs. I ran blindly, tripping over debris. The figure followed. Always just out of focus. Its whisper grew louder. Closer. Rule 10 approached. The clock struck 4. Reality fractured. Monitors displayed rooms I had never seen. Figures lurked just beyond vision. Voices whispered in unison, my name. Soft. Malicious. Hungry. I felt hands grab my arms. Cold. Firm. They held me. I struggled. The walls pulsed as if alive. The figure appeared in front of me. Limbs bending impossibly. Eyes glowing. Rule 2. I remembered it. I froze. Pretended to be asleep. The creature's gaze lingered. A hiss escaped its mouth. Then it vanished. I collapsed to the floor. My heart raced. Every muscle burned. I had survived. Barely. By dawn, I staggered back to the security office. The rule sheet lay on the desk. Everything seemed normal. But I felt it behind me. Watching. Waiting. And I knew, breaking rules carries consequences that follow you forever. I left the hospital trembling. Every night since, I hear the whispers. Every night, the shadows grow closer. I know now that the rules are not suggestions. They are contracts. And I had broken one. I had survived, but only barely. The night still calls me. And I know. The next time, I may not be so lucky. Night 4 arrived with a wind that howled like lost souls. I knew I should stay away. I shouldn't return. But something inside me, some foolish part, needed to see it again. The hospital loomed before me, windows black and empty. Fog slithered along the ground, thick and clinging. I entered. The air inside was colder than ever. Breath crystallized in the weak light of the flickering lamps. I sat at the security desk. Cameras showed hallways that no longer obeyed the laws of geometry. Rooms stretched and twisted. The East Wing. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I knew I had broken Rule 3. And Rule 10 would soon come. At 12:05 a.m., the knock came. Rule 1. Slow. Heavy. My name whispered in static echoes. Rule 2. I pressed against the chair, keeping perfectly still. The whisper circled me, growing sharper. I could feel it, the creature, or whatever haunted this building, knew I had disobeyed. And it was preparing. At 1:13 a.m., I left the office. Rule 9, broken. I had to see the East Wing. The hall stretched endlessly. Walls flexed like living tissue. Shadows danced. I felt their weight pressing on me, leaning in. The mirrors glimmered in the corners. Rule 7. I forced myself to look away. Yet something in the glass moved on its own. I saw a hand press against the other side. Fingers long, blackened, skeletal. They slid across the surface. I stumbled backward. A low moan filled the hallway. It came from everywhere and nowhere. The elevator groaned. Rule 6. I didn't approach it. I knew if I did, I wouldn't return. At 2:17 a.m., I heard movement in the East Wing. I shouldn't have gone. Rule 3. But I did. The hallway twisted like a snake. Rooms appeared where none had been. Doors opened into walls. I saw them. Figures crouched, impossible angles, glowing eyes, whispering my name. They flowed along the walls. They pressed from the ceiling and floor. I tried to run. The shadows followed, stretching, bending. Rule 5, never turn off lights. I flicked the flashlight across the hall. Shadows recoiled. But one lingered, staring. Watching. Hungry. The intercom crackled to life. Rule 8. Static filled the office. You will obey, a voice hissed. I could feel the presence behind me, breathing. I ran. Halls looped endlessly. I fell. I scrambled up. Figures whispered, following, circling, mimicking my steps. At 3:03 a.m., I saw a reflection. Rule 7. Not mine. A figure smirked back, lips moving without sound. It reached toward me. I turned away, stomach twisting. Rule 10 approached. The clock struck 4. Everything shattered. Corridors twisted impossibly. Monitors displayed rooms that did not exist. Walls breathed. Shadows thickened. Figures emerged. I felt them touch me. I screamed. My voice disappeared. Hands pressed against my face. I stumbled through halls that were no longer halls. The building became a labyrinth of hunger and malice. I reached the security office. It was empty. The rule sheet was gone. The lamp flickered. Everything was wrong. Time collapsed. Minutes stretched into hours. I knew now. Breaking rules doesn't just summon attention. It awakens what waits. It bends reality. It consumes reason and courage. By dawn, I crawled to the front doors. They opened. The fog outside felt warmer than the halls I left behind. I ran. The hospital watched me go. I survived. But I am not the same. I hear whispers even in daylight. I see shadows in corners that were never there. The rules follow me. Always. And I know. One day, I may break the last one. And then there will be no escape. Night 5. I told myself it would be my last. I had survived the previous nights. Barely. Every sound haunted me. Every shadow whispered my name. The hospital awaited, silent, patient. I entered. The air was colder than ever. The fog outside seemed to follow me inside. Dust and decay clung to everything. The walls groaned. I went straight to the security office. Monitors showed corridors that didn't exist. Doors led into walls. Shadows moved independently. I felt them watching. I reviewed the rules again. They had changed. Some lines rewritten in blood like ink. I shivered. Rule 1, do not respond to anyone knocking after midnight. Rule 2, if you hear someone whisper your name, stay still and pretend to be asleep. Rule 3, do not enter the East Wing after 2:17 a.m. Rule 4, keep all doors locked unless instructed otherwise. Rule 5, do not turn off any lights. Darkness carries more than shadows. Rule 6, if the elevator moves on its own, do not ride it. Rule 7, do not look at your reflection in any mirror after 3:03 a.m. Rule 8, if the intercom crackles with static, do not speak. Rule 9, do not leave the security office for more than 10 minutes at a time. Rule 10, when the clock chimes 4, everything you see may not be real. I had broken Rule 3. I had broken Rule 9. Rule 10 had fractured reality. Yet here I was. At 12:01 a.m., the knock came. Rule 1. Slow, deliberate. The whisper followed, my name. Rule 2. I froze. Pretended to be asleep. The whisper circled the office, closer this time. Closer than ever before. At 1:14 a.m., the East Wing called to me. The hallway stretched impossibly. Figures appeared at impossible angles. Shadows pressed along the walls. I knew the consequences of breaking Rule 3. I stepped forward anyway. The air thickened. Cold wrapped around me like hands. I could feel eyes on my back. Whispers multiplied. At 2:02 a.m., I saw a mirror. Rule 7. I knew I shouldn't look. But something compelled me. I looked. Not my reflection. A figure stared back. Smiling. Teeth too sharp. Eyes glowing. Its lips moved silently. It whispered my name. Closer. Closer. I turned away. The intercom crackled. Rule 8. Static hissed and spat words I could barely understand. You cannot leave. I didn't answer. I couldn't. At 3:03 a.m., everything changed. Time fractured. Walls bent impossibly. Corridors twisted endlessly. Shadows thickened. Figures lurked just out of sight. I felt them touch me. Hands cold and unrelenting. Breath on my neck. I stumbled. I fell. I tried to scream. No sound came. The clock struck 4. Rule 10. Reality collapsed. The hospital became a labyrinth. Figures pressed closer. The whispers became screams. I was surrounded. I remembered the rules. All of them. The last chance was to obey. To survive. I pressed myself against the floor, pretending to sleep. I stayed still. I breathed slowly. The shadows circled. Figures reached for me. I remained motionless. Morning came. The fog lifted. The hospital looked normal. The security office stood as it had before. I left. I survived. But I was changed. I hear whispers in quiet rooms. Shadows linger in corners that shouldn't exist. Sometimes, I see reflections moving on their own. The rules follow me. Always. Even now. Even here. And I know, one day, I may break the final rule. And there will be no return. The hospital waits. It always waits. And the whispers. They are patient. I am patient too. For now. Night 6. I could barely sleep the day before. Memories of the hospital clung to me. The whispers, the shadows, the impossible hallways. Yet I returned. I had to. I needed to understand. Or perhaps it was madness. The fog was heavier than ever. It clung to my clothes and skin like ice. The hospital waited silently. Its windows black voids. The front doors creaked as I stepped inside. The air smelled of decay and rust. Every breath burned my lungs. I went straight to the security office. The rule sheet was gone. In its place was a note, written in a hand that was not mine: "They are patient. So should you be." I sat at the desk. The monitors flickered, displaying hallways that did not exist. I knew the East Wing would call me. I knew I would go. At 12:05 a.m., a knock came. Slow. Deliberate. My name whispered in static. Rule 1. I pressed myself into the chair. Rule 2. I stayed still, pretended to be asleep. The whisper circled the office. At 12:57 a.m., I noticed something moving in the hallway on the monitor. Rule 9. I knew I shouldn't leave the office. I had broken it before. But I needed to see. I had to witness it. I stepped out. The hall stretched endlessly. The walls pulsed. The floorboards groaned underfoot. Shadows moved of their own accord. Figures crouched, elongated, twisting. Eyes glowed silver. Rule 3 screamed in my mind. The East Wing door was ajar. I knew I shouldn't enter. I did. The air thickened. Cold pressed against my skin. I felt unseen fingers trace my spine. The lights flickered. Rule 5. Darkness gathered in corners. It watched. I glimpsed a mirror. Rule 7. My reflection smiled back. I hadn't. It leaned closer. I turned away. The intercom hissed. Rule 8. Static filled my ears. You belong to the rules, it whispered. I said nothing. At 2:17 a.m., a figure appeared. Tall, thin, impossible angles. Limbs twisting, eyes glowing. It whispered my name. Closer. I froze. Rule 2. I remained motionless. The creature circled me. I felt its breath, cold as ice. It hissed. Then it vanished. I ran blindly. Corridors looped endlessly. Doors led into walls. The building became a living maze. At 3:03 a.m., I saw another reflection. Not mine. The figure's face stared back. Grinning. I turned away, stomach twisting. The clock approached 4. Rule 10. Reality fractured. The walls pulsed. Figures emerged. Whispers multiplied. I felt them touch me. I remembered the rules. All of them. Obey or be consumed. I pressed myself against the floor. I stayed still. I held my breath. The shadows circled. Hands brushed against me. Fingers long and cold. Morning came. The fog lifted. The hospital appeared normal. But I was not. I am no longer just a man. I am a witness. I carry the whispers with me. They never stop. They never rest. The rules are alive. They are patient. And I am patient too. Night 7. I don't know why I returned. Madness? Obsession? Perhaps both. The hospital waited. Silent. Patient. Hungry. The fog outside was dense, curling around my legs like fingers. The front doors creaked as I entered. The air inside was colder than any winter I had ever known. Dust hung thick in the beams of my flashlight. The smell of rust and decay choked me. I went straight to the security office. The rule sheet was back. Clean. Precise. Every word etched in bold letters. I read them silently, memorizing each one again. Rule 1, do not respond to anyone knocking after midnight. Rule 2, if you hear someone whisper your name, stay still and pretend to be asleep. Rule 3, do not enter the east wing after 2:17 a.m. Rule 4, keep all doors locked unless instructed otherwise. Rule 5, do not turn off any lights. Darkness carries more than shadows. Rule 6, if the elevator moves on its own, do not ride it. Rule 7, do not look at your reflection in any mirror after 3:03 a.m. Rule 8, if the intercom crackles with static, do not speak. Rule 9, do not leave the security office for more than 10 minutes at a time. Rule 10, when the clock chimes 4, everything you see may not be real. I shivered. I knew I had broken rules before. Some accidentally. Some intentionally. And I had survived. Barely. At 12:02 a.m., a knock came. Rule 1. Slow. Deliberate. My name whispered through static. Rule 2. I pressed myself into the chair. Heart hammering. I had to check the east wing. Rule 3. I knew the consequences. I went anyway. The hallway stretched impossibly. Shadows moved along the walls, independent of any light. Figures crouched in corners. Eyes glowing. The air grew thick. It pressed against me. Breathless. I glimpsed a mirror. Rule 7. Not mine. A face grinned back. Limbs twisting unnaturally. I turned away quickly. The intercom hissed. Rule 8. Static filled my ears. You will obey or be consumed, it whispered. I stayed silent. At 1:17 a.m., I felt a cold hand on my shoulder. Rule 5. The lights flickered. Shadows thickened. Figures whispered my name. I ran. The hallways bent impossibly. Doors opened into walls. The floor moved beneath me. At 3:03 a.m., I saw another reflection. Not mine. A figure stared back. Eyes glowing silver. Teeth sharp. Smiling. It reached for me. I turned away. Rule 10 approached. The clock struck 4. Reality shattered. Figures emerged. The walls pulsed. Shadows thickened. Hands grasped at me. I remembered all the rules. I obeyed. I stayed still. I held my breath. I pressed against the floor. Morning came. I emerged. The fog lifted. The hospital looked normal. But I was broken. The whispers follow me. The shadows cling to corners. Every reflective surface holds a secret. I know now, the rules are alive. They watch. They wait. And one day, if I fail, there will be no escape. Night 8. I knew it would be my last return. I could feel it in my bones. The hospital called me like a predator calls its prey. Silent. Patient. Relentless. The fog outside was thick, curling around my legs like icy tendrils. The front doors groaned as I pushed them open. Inside, the air was colder than any night I had ever endured. The smell of rust and decay was overwhelming. Dust hung like cobwebs in the dim light. I sat at the security desk. The monitors flickered. Corridors stretched impossibly. Rooms appeared and vanished. Shadows moved independently of light. The rule sheet lay on the desk. Freshly printed. Words sharp and precise. Rule 1. Do not respond to anyone knocking after midnight. Rule 2. If you hear someone whisper your name, stay still and pretend to be asleep. Rule 3. Do not enter the east wing after 2:17 a.m. Rule 4. Keep all doors locked unless instructed otherwise. Rule 5. Do not turn off any lights. Darkness carries more than shadows. Rule 6. If the elevator moves on its own, do not ride it. Rule 7. Do not look at your reflection in any mirror after 3:03 a.m. Rule 8. If the intercom crackles with static, do not speak. Rule 9. Do not leave the security office for more than 10 minutes at a time. Rule 10. When the clock chimes 4, everything you see may not be real. I remembered every night. Every rule I had broken. Every night I barely survived. And now I would face them all together. At 12:01 a.m., the knock came. Slow. Deliberate. My name whispered in static. Rule 1. Rule 2. I pressed myself into the chair. Pretended to sleep. The whisper circled me. Closer. Hungry. At 1:02 a.m., the East Wing beckoned. Rule 3. I knew the consequences. I had to see. I had to confront it. The hallway stretched infinitely. Walls pulsed. Shadows moved unnaturally. Figures crouched, elongated, twisted. Eyes glowing silver. I glimpsed a mirror. Rule 7. Not mine. A figure stared back. Grinning. Limbs bending at impossible angles. It reached toward me. I turned away. The intercom hissed. Rule 8. Static whispered, obey or become ours. I said nothing. At 2:17 a.m., the shadows thickened. The lights flickered. Cold hands brushed my shoulders. Whispers pressed into my skull. I ran blindly. The building twisted and breathed. The floors flexed. Doors led into walls. At 3:03 a.m., reality fractured. Rule 10. Figures emerged from every corner. Walls pulsed like living lungs. Shadows reached for me. I pressed myself against the floor. Stayed still. Held my breath. Obeyed. Morning came. The fog lifted. The hospital appeared normal. The world outside was quiet. I had survived. Barely. But I am not the same. The whispers follow me. Shadows cling to corners. Every mirror holds a secret. Every hallway waits. And every night, I hear the patient call of the hospital. The rules are alive. They are relentless. They are waiting. And I know, deep in my soul, one day, if I fail, there will be no escape. I walk among the living. But I am not one of them. I carry the hospital inside me. Its rules. Its whispers. Its shadows. I am patient. It is patient. And one day, we will meet again.